amongst my enemies, yeah. You see, you wanted to save you, and then learn how to raise you. But I forget you're from the wilderness.
Oh, hello there. What is up, everyone? I'm Raj.
I'm Eamon.
And this is Monster Fuzz Podcast, live in your living room.
Yeah, and also in our living room.
Yeah, also. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope you're having a good day. We've got a fun episode today. We're talking about the man, the legend, Mr. Whitley Streiber.
Whitley Strieber. Yeah,
Streiber.
I'd say Strieber, but only because it rhymed with fever, and I put on the episode Get the Fever with Whitley Strieber.
We'll say it both ways.
Whichever suits.
So that everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Hope everyone's doing well. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd like to encourage you to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And if you're listening audio only, if you leave a review, that'd be fantastic. And if you want to do more, we're on Patreon. Head on over. You'll get your exclusive episodes over there and all that other jazz, including ad-free stuff. Eamon, if they have any cryptid encounters or anything like that, where should they send that?
Were you swept away by the aliens in what can only be described as communion? Right into monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com, and we will read your stories out on a mini fuzz. And don't even just, don't relegate yourself to just stories of abduction. It can be a ghoul, it can be a demon, it can be a cryptid. What else is there out there? It can be a smiling man. That was another one. Indrid Cold. Just whatever you want yourself,
I actually heard this will show you the thing that we always repeat on this podcast is the more you talk about this stuff, the more you'll hear stories from people that you wouldn't have normally thought had a story
about, like, ghoulish sort of paranormal stuff.
So my girlfriend's mom, she follows us on Instagram, God help her, and she...
I might bring it down a notch.
I might do, yeah, we get in trouble. And she seen my interview with Tommy.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, did that really happen to Rob? Like what he was saying, like, did that, like, and Kara was like, yeah, I think so. Like, that's, and she went on to tell Kara a story. She was like, when she was like 12, she said she was looking down the back of her garden. It was like nighttime, but she said there was a full shadow figure.
Yeah.
Not like a shadow person. It was like a robed fella in all black with like a full black face. And the dog was barking and everything and going crazy. And she went to get like her mom and I think her nanny.
He's gone.
And he went.
It's amazing. Like, literally, you're never more than a handshake away from someone who has like a story like this. And what's really funny is we always because obviously you're going to be skeptical about stuff like this. But when so many people, like, because the thing is, either we all have these little things where we hallucinate a bit, possibly. Kira's Ma's making it up, which I would highly doubt.
No, not a game from it.
Or this is actually a thing she experienced. But at the end of the day, you just have to get on with your life, and you don't think of these things until someone says something that it kind of sparks it back, and you go, oh yeah. Like, I didn't remember the story of me being 7 and the shadow person in my room for probably months into us doing the podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. Because like, let's get on with it. Like,
it was like me with the cryptid book and all. Shit, like that whole thing. So like, yeah, it's mad. It is mad. But yeah, what is the crack with this, and fill us in?
Yeah, Mr. Strieber, would you like to give me fever?
Fever.
So Louis Whitley Strieber, he is born on June 13th, 1945. So before we get into anything, I'll give you the quick cliff notes. Is like, he was a horror writer. Keeping in mind, just for an idea of his age, my dad is 70 and he's 9 years older than my dad. Right. So he's like around now. He's give or take 80. When he was, I think, coming to prominence with all these books and stuff, you're talking 60s, 70s, 80s. He was basically writing a load of spooky horror books. And then he writes a non-fiction book called Communion. And that's his experience with being abducted. Now, and we'll cover all this in a bit more detail in the episode. He doesn't call them aliens, but the cover to Communion is the quintessential grey alien, and there's I haven't put notes about that there because it's really just about the artist. It sort of took away from it a bit. But if you search it online, Communion book, you'll see the thing.
Yeah.
You're looking throwing a Catholic joke, are you?
No, I'm smirking because see Russell Brand is out baptizing people now in rivers.
Oh, I heard that he found Jesus there recently.
Now he's out in his underpants baptizing people in rivers.
Is he allowed to? Is he like born again Christian?
Yeah, I think so.
Man, I've only been noticing a load of celebrities are getting into Christianity. Ever since I started drinking the blood of Christ.
Nothing wrong with it, but
nothing wrong with it.
Where Russell, it's like a very obvious pivot of like, I'm not a fucking sex creep. I'm Jesus, man. Do you know what I mean? And now he's out fucking baptizing motherfuckers in rivers after like 2 months of being Christian.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like,
it is weird that he's out baptizing them.
He was always like, Russell's always been like one step away from being in a cult, like being a cult leader. He always gave me them vibes. Like Russell Brand always gave me the fucking vibes. Like, and I wouldn't be surprised in 5 to 10 years because he's a charismatic, decent looking chap. He's a charismatic, decent looking chap, and he loves to fucking shite on.
Now, to be fair, he does. Now, I wouldn't be a massive, like when I say fan, I'm sort of indifferent to Russell Brand, but I did, compared to kind of what I would have known him for when he was doing the Bookie Wook and all that stuff on MTV. I was intrigued by some of the sort of spiritual stuff he was getting towards, and then it sort of went from spiritual into a little bit of conspiracy, and then sort of further, not like dogmatic, right? He still seems to have a lot of compassion and caring and stuff. But yeah, I haven't watched anything with him. I'm surprised to find that he is now baptizing people himself after he himself being baptized only fairly recently. But maybe that's how Catholicism or Christianity works now.
Yeah, but anyway, let's get back to Whitney.
Right, we'll get back to Whitney Ford Sings the Blues, which is a great album by Everlast. Louis Whitley Strieber, so he's born June the 13th, 1945, is an American writer best known for his horror novels The Wolfen and The Hunger, which I believe are vampiric
I like
novels.
a bit of vampires.
Lestat, you have come back, Lestat.
Russell Brand did make a good vampire. He would make a good
bit of anemia. Yeah, he needs some iron tablets. And he's also possibly best known for his book Communion, which is a non-fiction account of his alleged experiences with non-human entities. So we're not going to call them aliens. Cover the book is most certainly a grey alien, but we're not. We're gonna. And
now does he go out?
He gets angry if you say aliens.
Okay, right. That's
we have as well at the very end of this. I was curious to see if he has a blog and some other stuff. I was curious to see if I could get some of his reactions based on kind of the recent, let's call it disclosure for the crack, even though maybe it isn't, but the more Pentagon congressional hearings about the UAPs. You'd probably get a bit of a kick out of it. We'll have you read that, even if it naturally lines up that I do, because I think it would be good to hear you.
Also, shout out Mickey Slipper Deluxe. He
this one's Mickey Slipper Deluxe.
So, for our listeners that don't realise, patrons have the opportunity to request episodes, basically. And Mickey Slipper requested this one. So, this is what we're going with. We like the sound of it. We will get to the other ones, by the way. There's plenty of them.
Apologies. We actually, I forgot about that, and I was just doing my own notes. So
that's what it is. Okay, because I forgot we did that too. So.
Sometimes I forget we do podcasts, and I'm like, I know about aliens, not sure why though. So he's maintained a dual career of authoring fiction and obviously the non-fiction with his few books that he brought out after Communion. He's an advocate of paranormal concepts through his best-selling non-fiction books. He also has an Unknown Country website. And a podcast called Dreamland. Now, I haven't heard the podcast Dreamland, but I did hear him. I don't know if it was Coast to Coast or Paranormal. Your man's paranormal podcast, Jim Harold. Yeah. So I've heard a
Campfire.
I've heard, he does the camp. He does another one. He does the Campfire, and he does one called the Paranormal Podcast, which is more of a interview show. Right. So he did have Strieber on before on that, and I listened to him. He talked a lot of his wife. I think her name was Anne. She passed away, but there's a lot of stuff in her diaries in his blog and everything. So look, if you're into this stuff, it's worth checking out. But I would say it brings you into deep waters very quickly. So maybe just prime yourself a bit. So Strieber was born in San Antonio, Texas. He's the son of Kathleen Mary Drought and Carl Strieber, who was a lawyer. He attended Central Catholic High School in San Antonio, Texas. He was educated at the University of Texas. This will become important later. because, and I don't want to credit or discredit him. I'm sort of trying to be relatively fair in this. A lot of this as well, most of the stuff I could find was kind of Wikipedia articles, some of his own stuff. The Texas Tower shooting comes into this later.
Right.
So yeah, this is something University of Texas is important to remember. He was also at the London School of Film Technique and he graduated in 1968. He then worked for several advertising firms in New York City, rising to the level of a vice president.
VP.
Now, sometimes that's just a head of a department and they make it sound more sexy than it is. Or maybe he was, in effect, a vice president. He left in 1977 and he began to pursue a career in writing.
Very good. The right to write.
The right. Dune.
Strieber began his career as a novelist with the horror novels Wolfen and The Hunger, both of which were made into feature films, followed by the less successful horror novels Black Magic and Night Church.
The Night Church, I think a few of these have made it to celluloid as well. So some of these are movies. I want to say The Night Church. I've been watching a really cool. It's worth watching if you like horror. Watch a really cool TV show called Greatest Horror on Shudder.
Yeah,
I've only watched 3 episodes of it, but they do like the first episode is horror tropes and cliches. The second one is like creatures, so it focuses a lot on Godzilla and sort of them and those big spiders in the desert kind of stuff. The third one's Japanese horror, but I'm pretty sure that in one of them, The Night Church, they had a trailer because they show so much different horror movies at you. And they have people like talking about, the style, what makes it good, blah, blah, blah. I'm nearly certain The Night Church was one of the things I saw in that.
Oh, okay. Cool. So, Strieber then turned into speculative fiction with social conscience. Collaborating with James Konetka, he wrote War Day about the dangers of limited nuclear warfare and Nature's End, a novel about environmental apocalypse. He independently authored Wolf of Shadows, a young adult novel set in the aftermath of a nuclear war. That was very much in vogue around that time, right? He had a bunch of movies and films, late 80s, early 90s, about like potential...
Apocalyptic kind of...
Apocalyptic, you had like Dante's Peak. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Twister.
Yeah, Armageddon. Armageddon's probably a bit later.
But there's similar.
There's like a 10-year...
Like that's kind of gone, right? Because that was like super involved.
The last one was 2012, but that's when the Mayan calendar...
Yeah, and but movie-wise, like there was like The Day After Tomorrow. There's a lot of natural
disaster.
There was that
earthquake,
Gak one.
Twisters.
What was that one that came out there recently? Was
Twisters?
No, it was a Prime film. I think I talked about it on the podcast. I can't remember. It was out like last Christmas. It was one of them big kind of blockbustery ones about like natural disaster and the family flies across the... I can't fucking remember.
Yeah. The day before.
Literally, it'll tell you like how much I remember. Very, very vaguely remember.
Did you watch it all?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like just...
Garbage Vitelli.
Yeah, I can't remember who... Oh, it was Jared Butler was in it maybe? Probably. I think he was in it.
There's a load of twisters everywhere.
No, I think it was him. But yeah. So then he was doing less successful thrillers, Billy, The Wild, The Unholy Fire, and The Forbidden Zone. Author's short stories were collected in the 1997 limited edition volume Evenings with Demons, which sounds like a good time. More recent short stories include The Good Neighbour, published by The Twilight Zone, 19 original stories on the 50th anniversary, and The Christmas Spirits, a modern retelling of Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, so quite prolific.
Yeah, busy boy.
Busy boy, yeah. Which again, you do get a lot of writers around this era that are just banging out. You got to remember as well, the late 70s, the 80s, like books are way more popular than they are right now.
Yeah.
Because there's just not as much media to consume with your eyes.
I wish I could read more. Fucking hell, my brain is too addled to read books nowadays.
I find the only way for me to do it is when I'm not at home. Yeah. So when I go on holidays, I'll read. If I'm in a hotel or something, I'll read. If I'm at a work thing, I'll read. But if I'm at home, now that you've got me a Steam Deck, I'm fucked.
Forget books. Yeah, who needs books?
So this is all his kind of fictional stuff, let's say, and it gives a pretty good through line of the kind of stuff he's published from the 70s on. Again, like we're saying, this is when these books would have been pretty... I don't know how successful he was, but it's in the late 80s that the real crux of this. Otherwise, we're just talking about a guy who writes horror books, you know, which, to be fair, we've interviewed him. So, yeah, why not? Shouts out Joanna. I told you I had finished her book, The Gingerbread Men, which is great.
Shouts out Hunter Shea.
Hunter Shea as well, yeah. You read his Loch Ness Massacre. I think I read Creature of his, which is pretty good.
Class stuff.
So fair play. Yeah, so they're to our writing friends. So we're getting into communion now. So this is why there's an episode about Strieber, because I don't know. Believe it or not, it's pretty bizarre.
All right.
So Strieber basically states that when he was in his cabin in upstate New York on the evening of December 26, 1985, the day after Christmas, he was abducted by non-human beings. We're not going to go into what they did to him. Suffice to say, in his blog, he will mention a bit of it. Rob will read that.
Okay, cool.
It'll be great. He wrote about this experience and related experiences in the book Communion, which was released in 1987. This was also his first non-fiction book. Although the book is perceived generally as an account of alien abduction, Strieber draws no conclusions about the identity of the alleged abductors. He refers to the beings as the visitors, a name chosen to be as neutral as possible to entertain the possibility that they are not extraterrestrials. Neurologist Stephen Novella remarks that the details of Whitley's tale of waking up seemingly paralyzed fits the description of hypnagogia, a fairly common neurological phenomenon that has been mistaken by some for an intervention by demons or aliens. So this is the hag. This is sleep paralysis. This is the hat man, the shadow people, all that sort of stuff. Bad balaxes. Now there's also hypnagogia. There's also hypnopompia, I think, which is the aural. And we've all had that. Have you ever had like someone call your name when you're falling asleep and stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
Or banging sound?
No, I never get that. The only thing I get really is like that falling thing, and then I try and write everything when I'm actually asleep. But that falling thing, that like where you're like a fish out of water, I get that.
I haven't had that for a while. I don't think that's hypnagogia. That's something to do with your brain jolting you because it thinks you might have trouble.
I can't spoon when I sleep because I'll wake up writing.
Not just dry humping, like wet humping.
Well, dry humping, like, but yeah. Yeah, it's weird. So I have to.
You make these kind of remarkably sexual.
I'm a sexual man.
Like when we slept in the same room together. Yeah, no, the Tom Shellick over there. When we shared a room, you'd make these.
Now this was like 20 years.
This is a long time ago. Yeah, but you would. This wasn't like in your sleep. You'd be like you make sexy girls having orgasm. You're like.
Maybe I was being possessed by.
I think you were trying to coax me into the bed. It's like, is everything
like
okay?
A siren.
You'd be like some sort of plant that with the maw open and then, haha, gotcha, bitch. Lured in again.
No, yeah, it's that's the only things I do when I'm sleeping, and I have to actually sleep on my own side because otherwise I'll wake up addled and confused. And
do you ever ride the mattress then when you're asleep? Would you ever give it a go?
No.
Would you ever not know that you have and then you match it?
Maybe, you never know. You never know. Any part in the storm, you know?
Yeah. Look, the mattress, soft, supportive, which is more than I can say for a lot of wives.
That's true. That's true. Very true. You're dead right.
So both the hardcover and paperback edition of Communion reached the #1 position in the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction, with more than 2 million copies collectively. So I saw Strieber probably has a fair whelp of money now at this point.
Yeah.
If you get $1 for every book sold, you know,
especially in the 80s as well. Like, do you know what I mean? If you're selling
the
that
old
amount
inflation
of books,
maths on that, like,
you're doing well.
Now, as I said, we didn't really write about it too much here, and he has said that he doesn't refer to them as aliens,
right?
But if you look at the cover art to Communion, it is the depiction of a grey alien,
and that depiction is representative of what he says they look like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's an artist's rendition based on what he's described to them. So again, that's maybe what he's saying. Not so much as that they're not greys, but he's saying similar to what the UAP lads are saying. They're going, I don't know if they're extraterrestrial.
Well, that's fair.
Extraterrestrials. They could be like interdimensional or.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah,
I think so. Like, okay, well, like, yeah, because like if he's gone, I don't want to label them because I don't truly know what they are. Like. Okay, so if you and I were in the jungle and we seen what looked like a raptor or a T-Rex, like, we're not going to say it's a dinosaur for certain, right? We're going to say it looked like a dinosaur.
It looked like a dinosaur. Yeah.
I suppose and the reason that you're not saying it for certain is so you don't get ridiculed and called a gobshite.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you definitively say, no, it was a dinosaur, then you're going to have, like, paleobiologists and all this going, like, no, it wasn't, because we have evidence that it's not. So, like, just to cover your tracks, you're going to say, it looked like a dinosaur to me.
You couldn't be sure, really, either, could you?
No, you couldn't be sure. No.
So, it was published as non-fiction. However, the book editor of the Los Angeles Times pronounced the follow-up title Transformation, which came out a year later. He has like 5 books in this non-fiction series to be fiction, and removed it from the non-fiction bestseller list. It nonetheless made it to the top 10 of the fiction side of the chart. Now, Strieber said, it's a reprehensible thing.
Reprehensible.
My book is a true story. Placing this book on the fiction list is an ugly example of exactly the kind of blind prejudice that has hurt human progress for many generations.
That is cheeky, though, that to put it in fiction.
Yeah. Especially like that he's like, this happened to me.
Yeah, when he's putting it out as a true story and they're like, nah, we think it's fiction. Though.
Yeah.
Like, that is a bit unfair.
It is kind of funny. But then again, funny, like, I do kind of admire...
We went into fiction. Like, when we started this podcast.
But that was up to us. We had kind of said, like
that was the genre.
We didn't go in for, like, science. And then we're like, no, you're fiction.
No.
Yeah. I wonder what other crypto podcasts, like, would they be?
A lot of them are like society and culture.
Yeah, which makes sense.
We've bounced around because we were in fiction for like the first year or two, but we were destroying the charts in fiction. We were like number 1 in the UK and Ireland regular. And then I was like, it's almost not fair for like true fiction podcasts because we were up alongside fiction podcasts.
And we're like, actually reading things that
we're not truly fiction. Yeah, so it's like true. You know, we were in like society and culture
with the big boys,
comedy or something.
Thought we were hired before we went to secondary school. That kind of a thing.
You know, we're small town heroes, you know, and then we got out into the big fucking shit. With the real dogs.
Never got to number 1 again. So there has been a bit of criticism noting the similarity between the non-human beings in Strieber's autobiographical accounts and the non-human beings in his initial horror novels. And they were typically acknowledged by the author as a fair observation, but not indicative of his autobiographical works being fictional. So basically, some of the weird monster characters or creepy dudes in his books of fiction were quite similar to the aliens, right?
Yeah, which also happened, and I was talking again on Tommy's interview about this, like Patterson Gimlin, like Patterson had drawn like Bigfoot in the same pose with Diddy's in like a book. Like, a couple of years before the signing.
Kind of like
in the exact same pose where it's like, oh, if I'm an artist, I'm going to try and recreate that. But like, again, there's a lot of people, even with that argument, there's a bunch of people saying like, that's not, like, this is wrong, and that's what it's like, but no.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, here's the thing, right? So he says, the mysterious small beings that feature prominently in cat magic seem to be an unconscious rendering of the visitors created before I was aware that this may be real. So here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If he was knowingly going to write this book and purport that it was a completely autobiographical, non-fiction account of being abducted by otherworldly beings or other beings from a different dimension or whatever, you would have more foresight than to use a very similar, this is my opinion anyway, you'd have more foresight than to use a very similar character model, let's say, that you would have written about previously. That would be my, I mean, you could make the other argument that at the time he wrote Cat Magic, he was sort of like inspired by the idea of how aliens would have been described, that grey sort of alien thing.
It was just drawn from like the most pop culture kind of idea.
Yeah. So it's like, what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is it more or less likely to be real, or is he more or less likely to be reliable based on that? What do you think?
I think if you go with the continuity of, right, let's go with like Roswell happened, let's go with Bob Laser happened, let's go that continuity line, Area 51, all that. Yeah, then greys are consistently mentioned throughout.
Yeah.
So then if he wrote a book featuring greys, grand, right? And then, yeah, if greys showed up and did whatever they're going to do to him, then that makes sense, because then it is greys the whole time. That's mentioned everywhere, right?
So
That's the consistent thread.
Let me just double check.
You know?
I think that this cat magic book
Yeah.
was written before. There's some stuff, and we'll get into it in a little bit, where he says stuff has happened that hasn't happened.
That
or he
does
says
happen.
but he's not being shitty about it. He's more like he's going, I thought that this had happened, but it hadn't happened. Like they put that in my mind, kind of a thing. There's a lot of books called cat magic, would you believe?
Right.
Shrieber.
Well, I mean, cats, magical creatures, you know.
Cats are pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the cats, magic, witch, you know, all that jazz.
I like to watch
Cats.
Yeah.
Doing magic.
I like to watch them do magic. Do you ever see the cat that does the magic? That's when they get up and they try to
keyboard cat as well.
Yeah. Very
He's a
cool.
good lad, keyboard cat.
I'm in a weird part of the internet now.
Yeah.
I have Cat Magic Strieber and it says create content like magic with AI.
All right. No, we don't want that.
So I think this is a whole different thing. Anyway, my point was that I'm pretty sure that cat magic was, the book would have been released after when he said he was abducted, and he said he had like forgotten about it. So it's not like it happened and then he was like, fuck, I better write a book about this. It was like a memory that he unlocked.
Oh, right.
So it happened in 1987, but I think
he
published it in 1987. My apologies.
And he says that the abduction happened before that.
So he released that book, Cat Magic,
which
had these beings in it. But
right.
he said that he would have been abducted before writing that, but he had no recollection of it, I think.
But there was a subsequent abduction too. Oh, am I right?
So the communion abduction is like, so he writes about communion in 1987.
But that sounds to me then like he's kind of covering his hole and just going.
It could be, yeah. But again, if you knew you were gonna, like, he's saying he got abducted in 1985, just coming into 1986. He remembers it afterwards, released the book in 1987. Cat magic in between. I just don't have the date in front of me. But,
but see, my take with all that would be like, I don't know why he went down that route. Like he could have just said like, I depicted aliens as greys because that was the pop culture idea of them, and then lo and behold, what I met was greys.
This is it, yeah.
Like that's a way more or less convoluted fucking thing and way of explaining it, because greys is what people run with, like.
Yeah, so the mysterious beings that figure prominently in cat magic seem to be an unconscious rendering of the visitors that I created before I was aware that they may be real.
But sure, that's so convoluted. It's like, why are you trying to like break the wheel there? Like, you just, do you know what I mean? Like,
but again, unless he's telling the truth and he's like, on some part of my subconscious, this was here because I had been abducted. And, you know, so that's, I suppose, you can look at it two ways.
But like, what he's trying to argue is like, the average image of an alien that everyone associates with an alien was implanted into my brain. But it's
by actual aliens, and we're like, no, it was just like, that was in the cultural consciousness. Like, true as well.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, is like, why are you jumping through hoops for something that can, like, you can just explain and go, it's like Bigfoot, like, you know. Yeah. Like, you're not.
Why does your Bigfoot covered in metal armor?
It's like
Bigfoot covered in armor is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so it is. So that he'd look kind of like, remember in Halo, there was those like kind of bear alien race that had, they were cool.
Like Chewbacca.
Yeah. Other alien-centric books. Also, he doesn't like it when you call them aliens. So, since the 1987 publication of Communion, Streiber wrote 4 additional autobiographies detailing his experiences with visitors. Transformation, which was in 1988, the year I was born. Dun, dun, dun. What does it all mean? A direct follow-up, Breakthrough, the next step, 1995. No one was born then. A reflection on the original events and accounts of the sporadic contact he'd subsequently experienced. The Secret School, which was in 1996, in which he examined strange memories from his childhood. And lastly, Solving the Communion Enigma, What Is to Come, in 2011. Like, it's interesting because like Tim kind of almost has like an alien story,
very similar to this,
yeah. So
well, I mean, sorry, not to this, but to that like idea of hypnagogia. But again, Tim would be he's like, I don't know what it was. This is just the thing that happened, and it's like, and sometimes you do wonder. Again, you get in that Imminent book as well. There's a lot of that. This stuff about abductions, time missing, sleep. I don't know. They're saying like, is it a possibility that there's some sort of technology that allows them to abduct you and it feels like a dream sort of a thing? There's stuff in that about like sentient machines and all sorts of stuff. Like it's
Sure, anything's possible. Like I love playing with that stuff. But in solving the enigma, Streiber reflects on how advances in scientific understanding since his 1987 publication may shed light on what he perceived, noting, among other things, since I wrote Communion, science has determined that parallel universes may be physically real and that time travel may in some way be possible. There's a lot of things now saying that time travel just isn't possible.
Yeah.
Because
I think backwards time travel. Like there's a way to stop.
It's the rotation of the planet is what it is. So like if you're time traveling, you're going to end up in like fucking the middle of space.
Well, it's like the only way to time travel, if you like, is to go fast.
Yeah.
And so if you go fast, you have to go faster than the speed of light in order to time travel, if you like. Or you don't have to go faster than the speed of light, sorry, but you have to go at a very high
fly
speed.
from Dublin to Japan.
Yeah, actually, in certain flights at certain speeds, you will lose a second or two. Like technically, you've time traveled from, so time has been distorted from where you were. But it's basically a mathematical equation where at a certain speed, less time passes.
Yeah.
So if you go fast enough, you have time travel, but it's not the same as like going to the future of Earth.
No.
It's just the people there are older than you because time operates differently.
In a sense,
if you go at speed. So it's a kind of a bizarre. It's more distance rather than history and location.
Yeah,
if that
like
makes sense.
it's very unlikely to my understanding and my knowledge from what I've read, which is not very much, but like that you'll just end up if you try and time travel, like you won't be able to. Like if we had a time machine and we were like we want to time travel to like the Bull Ring here in Wexford Town and like enter the centre, like. To actually do the math to figure that out, to get in that spot in a certain place of time and make sure that spot was intact and there was
you mean with the world moving and I understand.
Like it doesn't
and I think the other thing is that like in terms of time and time distortion, that's just speed and that's the future. Going back into the past is a whole different kettle of fish. And the other thing is, can you go back into the same time? Like if you think about sort of the ideas of the multiverse and string theory and all that, can you actually go back into the same timeline, like the grandfather paradox? So if you go back in time and kill your grandfather,
what happens to you?
How can you do that? Do you just disappear? Is it a different timeline? Like blah blah blah. So yeah, it's fun. It's the kind of stuff you can sit down and have fun pulling apart, and you can do. You know, did you ever watch that Looper, that sci-fi movie?
No, sounds familiar though.
It's a Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in as well, but it's basically a time travel thing where they're going back, and it's pretty good. You know, it's kind of like a mercenary hitman time travel movie.
Poor old Bruce. I actually seen his last appearance in a film recently.
Yeah, when he was quite bad with
that's sad because
wasn't he just trying to make loads of money, not for himself almost, but just to leave, because he knew it was coming.
You can tell like that he's like very limited because like he's just sitting in the spot, and it's like he's probably
what was the thing? It began with an A, wasn't it? The sickness he had. I can't
Alzheimer's, no?
Maybe it was a form of that, but it had like the specific name on it was something different. If I'm recalling it correctly, like
no, I think he has Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
maybe
he's dead now, isn't he?
No,
is Bruce Willis not dead?
He's alive, man.
Sure.
Yeah, Bruce is with us.
I thought Bruce is gone.
No, he's with us. You fucking know if Bruce is dead, son.
Mandela
we've been playing
effect.
Die Hard on this podcast for fucking weeks. It's Bruce and Pulp Fiction, Legend of a Man. No, he's not dead.
Or is it just that
he's not in the public eye anymore? You see, because he's bad enough now. I seen a video of him holding hands with one of his daughters, I think, recently. It was quite nice. Shouts out Bruce Willis.
Born comedy,
no, he's alive, man. He's not dead.
I thought he was dead. Years active, 1980 to 2022.
Yeah.
Aphasia, that's it.
Oh, aphasia.
He retired. That was it. He retired from acting due to the aphasia. So he's not dead, but he's dead by Hollywood standards. He won't be back in Hollywood.
Okay.
His career has died. But he is not well, but alive.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah. Strieber, yeah, he's gone on about advances in scientific understanding. Among other things, since I wrote Communion, science has determined that parallel universes may be real and that time travel may be possible. The book is a consolidation of my UFO sightings and related phenomena, including crop circles, alien abductions, mutilations, and deaths in an attempt to discern any kind of meaningful overall pattern. Real quick, the mutilation videos that we were sent in pictures. Yeah. Someone said badgers on TikTok. I know badgers doing this. If anyone wants to see them, by the way, I have all the videos. Did I send them to you?
No, I just saw the JPEGs, but
yeah, I'll send you the videos. Like,
I've seen it after a lad getting lifted in the head with a Harley. I think I've seen enough violence for one day.
It's like fucking Resident Evil shit. Like, yeah, no badger doing it. Like.
Nah, that like. Because it looks, from the images at least, it looks serrated, surgical.
Yeah, but like some of them now do look like
it tore up.
Yeah, like
now, to be fair, yeah, and sure, maybe both things are happening.
Yeah,
you know, scavenge.
So Strieber concludes that the human species is being shepherded to a high level of understanding and existence within an endless multiverse of matter, energy, space, and time. If I hear multiverse one more fucking time, I'm so sick of that fucking term, verse. Ballocks. Disney is around that.
It makes story writing
it's
much
so
less
lazy.
Because it doesn't. Nothing has stakes anymore.
Like multiverse is like the like free to play shooting games on consoles, like those online games.
No one cares. Like the multiverse, sure, fucking Iron Man's Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
What? Sure, your ma's your dad. What? Do you know what I mean? Just none of it matters. Now, don't get me wrong. The concept of Iron Man being Doctor Doom is pretty cool. But like none of it matters. If someone dies, just go so. Like they're gonna just come back.
They've like completely turned me off Star Wars and Marvel.
I never thought that you could turn me off.
Like that's
Marvel
like
movies.
That's like me with Star Wars.
Yeah,
I'm like I fucking loved Star Wars. Like I was diehard Star Wars fan. I haven't watched any of that shit since like Solo.
Yeah,
or like when I watched that trilogy, Garbo.
Did you watch the Solo movie?
Solo was good.
I actually didn't see it. Yeah,
Solo was good.
I saw the one. What was it? Rebel.
That was good.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But it's just, so much of it is just, it's just
gack.
It's the same thing.
Multiverse, man.
Again.
Star Wars is going to do multiverse now next.
Star Wars and Marvel and the Guardians of the Galaxy and all, like they'll do something like that. It'll be the dying moan of a great animal before it just falls into death.
Oh, by God, it's Luke Skywalker outside the Daily Bugle.
That's it with Jim Ross. Why not throw him into the multiverse?
John Cena is here. Ladies and gentlemen, John Cena's joined Thanos.
It's like AI making movies. It's just that's the thing though. There's no stakes. It doesn't matter. None of it matters.
It all stopped. Peak coolness was Infinity War.
Yeah,
that was it wasn't getting any better than
they should have just gone back to the streets. They should have cut it all down. Right, Daredevil.
Multiverse,
let's start back with him.
More multiverse.
Oh, do you know what would be class actually? Megan Thee Stallion twerking with She-Hulk. That was actually pretty good.
I
enjoyed She-Hulk. It's total femme power and a load of people hate it. But I thought, basically. But I quite enjoyed it. She becomes the Hulk, and within an afternoon she's a way better Hulk than Bruce Banner ever was.
Let's watch it, but then also I don't want to watch it. But
no, actually, there's way better stuff to watch. Actually,
I'm watching. I told you that I'm watching The Bear. Very good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you'd rather watch a man cook a dish than watch a multiverse movie. That's where we're at.
The multiverse. It's matter, space, and time. Can we understand the multiverse?
It's the quantum.
What is going on?
I love with quantum, you can just make up bullshit.
Whoa.
Just the quantum.
What is happening?
When you put your mind out and think of the quantum. That's my impression of Deepak Chopra.
To be fair to this lad, he was talking about the multiverse ahead of the curve there, so fair play to him. He also writes more candidly about the harmful effects of his initial experiences had upon him while staying at his upstate New York cabin in 1980s, noting, I was regularly drinking myself to sleep, much like Eamon, when we were there. I would listen to the radio until late hours drinking vodka. Eamon actually says class.
I actually wrote class. I forgot to put that in red.
No.
I've actually been very good the last few weeks. So fucking
you're
boring.
back.
Oh my god,
The
it's
multiverse
so
is
boring.
back. There's one multiverse where I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
This is the
I'm the
true
multiverse in between where like I oscillate between alcoholic and sober guy. Like there's nothing nicer than at the end of the day
Nice
pouring
old
yourself a nice
pissy whiskey.
and having to sit there. They have the steam. That'll be broken minutes. So I just be pouring whiskey on it and fired it against tables and all. But he was trying to deal with being abducted by otherworldly beings, whereas I'm just drinking. So
Other visited themed books of Streiber's include Majestic, a novel about the Roswell incident, The Communion Letters, 1997, a collection of letters from readers reporting experiences similar to Streiber's, Confirmation, in which Streiber reviews a variety of evidence that is suggestive of alien contact, or other contact, shall we say, and considers what more would be required to provide confirmation. One might say he's writing a multiverse of books. The Greys, a novel in which his impressions of alien contact are presented through a fictional thriller espionage narrative, and Hybrids, a fictional narrative that imagines alien-human hybrids that Xenosy being born into the modern world.
that actually sounds like a pretty good concept.
Xenosy?
Well, I was going to say alien human hybrids being born into a modern world. I swear to God, I felt so strange looking at that
Xenosy?
that sexy xenomorph you sent.
I
It was
sent-
weird, man.
Yeah, for my listeners, I sent for our listeners, my listeners. What the fuck is that about? I'm like Russell.
fine?
I'm like Russell Brand.
Oh.
Let's go get communion in the fucking
stupid
river.
co-host. That's like a picture of a sexy alien.
Join
Isn't it?
us in the fucking river. Yeah, no, it was a Xenosy.
It was.
It was a face down, ass up xenomorph.
It was
caked
fucking.
up.
It was the most graphic xenomorph I've ever seen.
Caked up, had big ditties.
Yeah.
Hear me out, you know.
No, like
Any port in the storm.
But I think the problem was when I was looking at it, like there was a part of my brain that was like, interesting. And then there was another part of my brain that was like, that's a xenomorph. And it was like they were fighting with each other because it was like looking at a Giger painting where like it's all sexy and all, but weird and
He would
mechanical.
love that, like he would have loved that picture. He would have been like, that's
Imagine
brilliant.
what that lad was beating off to.
Yeah, mad.
I'd say H.R.
Class.
Giger. His mind, he could never, like, he's one of the rare cases where it's probably more dangerous to have a wank with your imagination than use the internet.
I was looking at his art books when no joke I was 9 and 10.
Getting all weird feelings in your
I
corduroys.
went downtown like as a fucking 9 or 10-year-old obsessed with Alien, and I found like a Tashin art book of his
Giger.
poster book. I was like, yeah, I'm buying that. I had them all up on my walls and all,
Yeah.
just like mad shit.
And did
like
you,
10.
when you were looking through it, was there a party that was like, what?
Oh yeah, I was like, what
Because
the
he
fuck
has
is
stuff where
this?
like it's basically like this weird like hieroglyphic alien machine thing, but it's just a cock going into a pussy.
yeah,
But it's
Xenosy.
a Xenosy, excuse me, a Xenoc.
There's a,
Xenoc
I seen
going
a
into
lad getting
Xenosy.
he had a really cool back piece of, you know, that one he did of his wife, but it's like she's like a big alien looking weird.
Oh,
fucking
the
head.
one that he used for what was that other movie?
Could have been.
Species.
Could have been.
Yeah.
But it was class, like a real cool
Yeah.
back piece.
Do you ever see one of your cousins has the alien with the thing coming out of his mouth, but the tattoo isn't fully done, so it just looks like the alien's giving a mad blowjob.
Yeah, that one ain't great. Not to be fair to it.
It looks pretty good. It just needs to be finished, you know, to be fair.
Needs more Xenosy.
But yeah, that picture of the alien, man, fucking yoga Xenosy. She's doing, is out there doing yoga and getting titty implants and stuff.
If I remember, I'll stick it on the YouTube there, so all of
Yeah,
our
you should
audio
stick it
only
in so they can
listeners
see it, because it was
listen out.
like,
yeah.
I thought it was a girl in a morph suit,
And then
and I
you
was
were
like,
like,
this
oh,
makes
this is
sense
cool.
why I feel weird.
Yeah.
Then you were like, that's AI. The weirdest part is that it just looks like it's in your old house in Cromwell's like the layout.
It could be me.
That's why I was so confused by it. Like,
It might be AI at all. The aliens implanted it in my brain that it didn't happen, but it did.
I turned into a sexy Xenosy.
Whitley Strieber has repeatedly expressed frustration that his experience had been taken as alien contact. I wonder why, when he does not actually know what they were. Strieber has reported anomalous childhood experiences and suggested that he may have suffered some sort of early interference by intelligence or military agencies. He was extensively tested for temporal lobe epilepsy and other brain abnormalities at his own request, but his brain was found to be functioning normally. The results of these tests were reported in his book, Transformation.
Now this lad, this lad's been around a lot as well. He did the Late Late Show in Ireland,
really?
back in the 90s.
Fuck him.
Yeah. This dude, he's gone on the circuit, like he's
the multiverse of chat shows.
The multiverse of chat show, yeah.
Fair play to him.
So it's worth checking that out. But again, this back in the 90s, you're trying to drum up a bit of publicity for yourself. So you don't have forums on the internet.
No.
So you're doing
you're doing your thing.
You're doing that real work.
The circuit.
So is he a reliable source? So this is an example of what maybe you would say, or no, I'll leave it up to people to see what they think. So in Communion, Strieber wrote of having told friends over the years that he had witnessed the University of Texas tower shooting in Austin.
Right.
That's in August 1st, 1966, when he had in fact not been on campus that day.
Right.
And he says, for years I have told of being present at the University of Texas when Charles Whitman went on his shooting spree from the tower in 1966, but I wasn't there. For years I have explained my sudden departure by saying that I couldn't stand the place after Charles Whitman's sniper attack. The truth was I could have remained after that incident. It was my secret terror that drove me away. So, try to untangle this a little bit. He basically has this full account of what happened at that shooting. So if you're not familiar, Charles Whitman, he was a guy who they discovered that he had a tumor on his brain.
That's right. Yeah.
He killed his mother, killed his girlfriend, then went up to a tower with a gun and shot a dose of people in Texas University.
Ned Flanders do it in The Simpsons as well? Was it Ned?
I think he was about to do it, wasn't he? But Ned thought better of it. Christ saved him once again. So Strieber said he was there. He talked to people about it. He said initially that he had witnessed the Whitman shooting. He presents his claim, rather, to have witnessed the Whitman shooting in Communion in the context of alien abduction screen memories, expressing puzzlement at having repeated this false claim over the years. So he's saying, he's blaming the alien some way. There's a tenuous link here that I don't fully get, but again, I haven't read the book, so maybe it's more clear in that. It's as if the aliens have put these messages in his head, but he said this in the 60s to people he knew, I would assume.
Yeah.
But he wasn't there. But I think part of the reason for this is that he was allegedly, part of the reason for this, he may have been found out to have not been there.
Yeah.
And was now backtracking. This is like when Vince McMahon came out when the Netflix documentary dropped and he was like, it's about to come out and there's going to show you one side of the story. It's like, dude, you were shitting on a girl's head. Like, come on, dude. Come on.
Eat John Laurinaitis' ass. Get out of there, John Laurinaitis.
John Laurinaitis. And then John Laurinaitis like, he made me do it too. We're like, John, fuck me. Like, scumbags. He's a scumbag, don't you know? They're all infected, but he'll be all right. John Laurinaitis, absorb the chlamydia for me. In a 1985 interview with Douglas Winter, published in Faces of Fear, Strieber said this: I had just had a Coke. I was walking from the student union to the academic centre, which was an open shelf library near the tower, when I heard a sharp bang that echoed off the university co-op across the street behind me. And the reason I am alive today is that I didn't turn around. I thought it was coming from the tower. Maybe I saw some movement out of the corner of my eye. All the people in front of me thought this sound came from the co-op in front of us, not the tower behind. The next thing I saw is trigger warnings. The next thing I saw was a little boy on a bicycle coming towards me, and his head just exploded.
Nice.
I didn't hear that one. I knew then that it was coming from the tower. The other people all took cover that shielded them from the co-op, but left them exposed to the tower. They were all killed, shot. I ran to the little remaining wall about 3 feet, or little retaining wall, around 3 feet high, which was near the base of the tower building, about 20 yards from it, and I laid down there. He shot 2 girls in the stomach right behind me, 30 feet away from me. They were lying there in the grass, screaming, begging, pleading for help, trying to crawl away. One of the girls' legs wouldn't work. The other one was vomiting pieces of herself out of her mouth. So I did say trigger warning. And I could smell the blood and the odor of their stomachs, what was in their stomachs and their colons. The smell was horrible coming out of these poor kids, 2 young co-eds. And he did that to get me and this other guy who were hiding behind this embankment to come out. I stayed there. I was sick with dread watching them die, knowing that the gun was waiting. And the other guy suddenly went out and tried to pull one of them away and got shot in the head and killed. Whitman just shot the top of his head off. I stayed right where I was for a long, long time until I saw them, with my own eyes, bringing Whitman's body out. The ambulance men came up to me and said, "You can come out now, he's dead." But I would not move until I saw him. So, critics, including panellists on the British television discussion programme After Dark, questioned Strieber about his statements in Communion after not having been at the Whitman shooting. Strieber announced that in his latest book, Transformation, he had changed his mind and decided that he had witnessed the shooting. Despite this, according to public information, no little boy on a bicycle was killed by Whitman that day. Further, according to Ed Conroy in his report on Communion, Strieber's mother stated in an interview that Strieber had been in Austin the day of the shooting, but not on the campus. Right. So look, I'll put it to you this way, right? Let's first of all try to go with Strieber.
Right.
If you were an interdimensional entity that was able to mess with people's minds and abduct them and all the rest of it, conceivably, to cover your tracks, you could mess with their mind to such an extent that they would think they'd experienced something that they didn't. Yeah. Which would then put you in an uncomfortable situation where you basically look like you're someone that tells lies. Yeah. So that's possibly... Yeah. The other thing you would say is that if he had said this to people from 66 onwards, right? So he publishes the book, let's say 19 years later. Is he a bit of a clout chaser who just likes to tell tall tales to get all of the attention on him, regardless of how outlandish it might be?
Like, why would aliens interfere with him being there? Like,
so I think because it happened in 1985, he writes the book. Is it possible that they're doing that as a kind of a trigger, like a dead man's trigger? Right. So that if he goes up or if he says stuff that they don't want him to say, they can then make... No, this is kind of me writing fiction with my mouth. Okay. You know? Yeah. So... it's very egocentric of him to be like... There's a lot of narcissism. That's what I'm getting. I think you get it. Like again, without knowing these people, the likes of David Icke and blah, blah, blah. It's very me-centric.
Yeah, it's like I am the conduit of like aliens that are that advanced that they can change the fabric of time and reality, but also only want to communicate through me for some reason or another. Yeah. And I'm someone that most of the population thinks is telling fictional stories, so they're obviously not very good at doing it then, are they?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, if it did happen to him...
Yeah, if it did, look, we're going to figure it out now.
Well, the next part that you're going to read out is like this is like 2021, so I think this is slightly June 2021. This is a little bit later down the congressional hearings. I want to say it's a little bit. So it's basically he has a load of there's about 37 pages of blog entries at 5 entries a page. So every few months he pops something up. I was curious to get his thoughts on disclosure, and there's a load of stuff there. Obviously, I didn't read it all, but this one I thought might give us a bit of an insight into what he thinks of everything that's going with the UAPs right now, how he thinks that might link in with his own experiences. So yeah, take it away.
Now that the fact that the US government has been studying intact UFOs and materials for 80 years has been revealed, what happens next? There is a gigantic social issue involved. They have been lying to everybody, including our most distinguished academics and scientists, our allies, religious leaders, and the general public, and even most politicians. They have, in other words, been lying to the entire human species. That's fair enough. We up to now, we were saying that on the podcast.
Yeah.
They have also been lying to us, the close encounter witnesses, and worse, about us.
Yep.
What do they know about what happened to us and what still does happen? How does contact work? Why are certain people chosen for this? For example, why, after I wrote the book War Day, that infuriated the administration at the time, Reagan, did I suddenly find myself in the hands to the visitors? Was I given to them as retaliation? Or was there some other sort of locomotion having nothing to do with the government?
There is a theory that like there's an agreement between the government and the aliens that they have the right to do things. But anyway, he actually talked about that next.
Imagine like day one in the White House, like, congratulations, President Harris or Trump. Here's fucking Murdoch, the fucking alien overlord.
That would be pretty
say
close.
Hello.
There's a lot of stuff. What was it? The Jackie Gleason stuff where Nixon. There's a rumor that Nixon, they're out drinking one day, and he was like, "Do you want to see something mad?"
Oh yeah.
And he brings him in and shows him all this mad UFO and alien stuff. And because your man Gleason was such a devout Christian,
Yeah.
it shattered his worldview, and he was like upended for a long time.
I mean, that's spicy.
Pretty good story.
There have been rumours for years that some kind of secret agreement exists between some deeply hidden part of the government and visitors. Is this true? I can never forget this response when I said, "You have no right." It was, "We do have a right." I think that we all have another right. It is to ask and be told truthfully whether or not our government at any level has communicated with the presence that is here in such a way that is agreed to let it interfere with individuals without their consent or knowledge. Whether or not it has done this, we also have what I regard as fundamental and inalienable right to know what they understand about what has happened to us. Years ago, to Air Force personnel who had come to a book signing I was having in Dayton, Ohio, came out of Wright-Patterson and let me see a photograph, analog, it was before digital, that showed a group of greys standing in an ordinary American neighbourhood in a nighttime setting. I asked to keep it, but they refused. I asked if they were Air Force, because they were in civilian clothes, and they responded that they just wanted me to know that I was on the right track, and that they left immediately.
It's worth saying now that he's inspired a huge amount of X-Files stuff from communication, and that seems like it's a scene directly out of X-Files.
Yeah,
also.
that rings a bell. Yeah. So was this an elaborate prank, or does the Air Force know about the abductions? I don't think it was a prank. Creating an analog photograph that looked that real in those days was a challenging feat. Not impossible, but far more difficult than it would be to generate a digital photo now. It was an ordinary Kodak snapshot like you saw all the time during that period. We deserve to be told every single thing the government at every level knows about what has happened to us. Another example was on December 26, 1985, I was orwarded, "Get out here, John Laurinaitis," with a device that caused an erection and semen was extracted from my body. "Get him, John." Massage him good. Work the prostate. 10 or 11 years later, a very strange, terribly disturbed boy whom I have written about many times ended up living in the woods behind our cabin. Was he my child? And what of all the women who lost eggs and fetuses, and the other men who experienced the same indignity that I did?
There is those things about women having these abduction experiences and then just like not having their babies, and there's a whole thing about souls and human alien hybrids, all that sort of stuff. So
have human children been created as a result of the abductions? We have as fundamental a right to know. My brain is breaking because I've had like 4 hours sleep. In fact, I cannot imagine a more fundamental right than to know of this existence and fate of your own children. Right now, I am assuming that the close encounter witnesses will continue to be ignored as long as possible. There may even be an organised effort to discredit us and call us fantasists. Given that I have an implant in my left
I think it's meant to be
ear right now, and I am not the only person with such an object in their body, any attempt, or I should say further attempt, to spread such a lie is treason. More fundamental than treason against a nation, it is treason against the human nation against mankind. It would be class, like, if we all got together, like, fucking start fighting aliens and shit.
Pretty good.
It'd be class, like. It'd be cool to be able to root for the Russians and the Chinese for once, you know?
Yeah, and they root for us. We become a brotherhood of man.
So I mean, yeah, go Afghanistan.
People.
Get them, Afghanistan.
Yeah, get them. Islam rules. Tommy Robinson. Islam fucking rules, mate.
It'd be class, man. Think about that, like. America's turning on the Cubans and all. Be deadly, man.
Ah, they'd be all together, like.
Yeah. Get them, aliens.
Mr. Gorbachev, shoot down that craft.
I'm telling you, man.
This is Project Bluebeam, the one world government. This is how it all starts.
I will not be silent. I will not be bullied, ostracized, and lied about for too long. I've endured being made a public laughingstock for my word, and have had to endure the anguish of that very public humiliation now for about 30 years.
Yeah. He did write it in a book for everyone to know. He's like, what he's writing is like, should I leave the part where they extracted seminal fluid out of the book? Or nah, I'll put it in. And what about that weird child? Sure, he could have been my son.
He was my son. And I doubt that there is a single witness out there who has not been in some way harmed because they told somebody what happened to them. For God's sake, why?
Vince, why? Why, Vince? You have everything. It was supposed to be you, Anakin.
We must no longer be called fools, scorned, laughed at, diminished, ignored, and ghettoized. That's a good word. We are something very special indeed, extraordinary. We are in the front line, first contact between mankind and another intelligence. That's what we are. It is a wonderful thing to be, and we need to all stand together in our suffering and in our pride, and stand up to those who scorn us, who bully us, who hold us to be laughingstocks, and who oppress us, including our government, the media, and all of them lads. Basically just fucking waffles on there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and then at the end he goes, I might add that this isn't all dark. There is something else involved that is strengthening and supportive, as I point out in Them, my new book. So,
tune into my new novel, ladies and gentlemen, where I tell you everything about it. I don't know, and there's a lot of fucking madness with this cunt.
It's a mad one, isn't it? It's an interesting tale.
There was another one we did that was similar to that, remember? Gingery dude with the mustache.
Oh, Devil's Den.
Could have been that one.
He was the fellow who worked for the military.
Yeah,
and him and his buddy.
Yeah,
he created. Yeah, I wonder if we can just make a book.
We should, yeah. We were
like, and the aliens had no Mickeys. And me and Rob laughed at them, but that was a poor choice.
It turned out that the aliens implanted a memory in us to do this podcast.
This is like, I think if there is a government that like is monitoring people, you know, trying to release information about UFOs and blah blah blah, we're like the least threatening version of that possible. Yeah.
What do you think, Sighting or Shiting?
My initial feeling is shiting.
Yeah, I'd say so too. Yeah.
I want, like, don't get me wrong, I want all this. And look, I mean, like, it is pretty bad to get essayed. Yeah. AOSA. We're gonna extract your seminal fluid, man.
Get out here, John Laurinaitis. Get out, John. So much you're good for.
John Laurinaitis, jizz into her eyes. No, Jesus. I was trying to think of like a bad thing Vince would do. That's up there. That is up there. That's pretty horrible.
We should probably go.
But John Laurinaitis was a victim too, Rob. Vince made me do all this.
Just like 85% of our listeners are going, who's John Laurinaitis? Like, they're like, what are you still talking about? Like,
who's John Laurinaitis? It's Johnny Ace, son. They don't know who Johnny Ace is. What?
It's like most of them are like, who the fuck? And I'd say
most of our listeners don't know who John Laurinaitis. Imagine just hearing a name you've never heard before, just being like, finger his asshole.
Crazy. we should just get out there.
We should just do the John Laurinaitis podcast.
We should actually interview him. Life and Times John Laurinaitis. Yeah, look, Should we leave it there, will we?
I think we should probably leave it there.
I've been Rob.
I've been John Laurinaitis.
Buzz rolls over.